very much for joining in today. It's been really amazing, the feedback we had. We had about 29, 28 people joining in, either in person here in Nelson and here on Zoom. Thank you very much for your time and effort coming together. So we will record this session because we had a number of people wanted to join, but they couldn't. So we have an amazing array of people around from all parts of the industry, tourism industry. We've got filming, we've got social networkers, we got tourism experts. We have hopefully New Zealand Tourism, as well as a board member for the TIA, Tourism Industry Association. Jackie, are you there? Yeah, she should be somewhere. So
yeah, I'm here. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Jackie.
I'm off video because I'm eating my lunch. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's all right. That's the modern world of Zoom, isn't it? You do all these things together. So yeah, lovely to have you here. So great. Hey, thank you very much. Just very briefly, I don't want to talk too long, but I just want to acknowledge a couple of people. Thank you very much for Gisela and Jess and Sarah helping out with setting this up. We have Kazum, our IT genius. He's gone, but here it's setting it all up. So thank you very much. We got David from Destination Capacity. He helped me with brainstorming sustainable tourism and session. My name is Michael Nees. Some of you may know me, others not. I came to New Zealand in 1986. I've been involved in tourism for 30 years. As a tour guide, guiding Germans and through New Zealand and Nepal, and yeah, I love the country, and so I'll be here. And lately, I've been an inbound operator. Main markets were North America and the European markets, and obviously, I was heavily affected, like a lot of other operators in the tourism industry. So we have a little slide through here before I pass over to Professor Billinghurst. So Professor Billinghurst, thank you very much for coming to the sunny Nelson Tasman region. Professor Billinghurst is a pioneer in AR and VR technology, a worldwide leading figure in that respect. So we have somebody with profound knowledge and insight. So what we try to achieve today is really to put our thinking together and talk about the opportunities for the future. So of course it doesn't work. Oh, okay.
Use the mouse on the table.
Yeah, I don't. It should just go on there. That was working before when we tested it out, wasn't it?
If make the screen active. Look on this one. It should be.
Oh, there you go.
No, you should be all good. Let's go. I just think Alex, click on
Glad we have the professor here to sort it all out.
Is that what you want?
Yes.
So maybe you should use this one.
All right. So I just click
the left mouse button.
the left mouse button. Great. Okay, cool. So hi, Grant. Grant is from Sydney, Australia. So we've got Australians here as well. Yeah, the world has changed in 2020 in March. Before that, we were, as tourism operators, we were managing operations, we were looking after the staff, we invested in new developments. But afterwards, our struggle is really with the business overheads, with the cash flow, with unpredictabilities, which we never foreseen. Something like this. I mean, I'm doing this in 30 years, and we never had anything like COVID before. So this is it's a huge challenge for the industry as such. So our business has changed, and it's a kind of a game changer for the tourism industry. But how can we adjust? What can we do to be prepared for the future? And if we think about it, innovation has always been a key ingredient for the tourism sector. Think about in the 80s, we had slideshows. We had fax machines in the 80s. We had internet coming in the 90s, emails, we had mobile phone technology coming in the 2000s and smartphones especially. So there's a progressive development, innovation when it comes to using technology. So I believe this is what we should enhance to move forward with the industry. We have many other challenges we need to consider as well. What we have at the moment, the COVID and the pandemic around the world, this may be one of them, but we need to also think about the recessions may come or not, but also the climate change. So we need to prepare for the future. Tourism is only one. We've been in tourism through that before, so we need to create a more resilient tourism for the future. So how do we do that? So some of us may think, hey, in a couple of years' time, everything will be fine again. Some of us think maybe we use smart technology to move forward. And some of us even think about actually using it as for marketing purpose. So at the end of the day, we tourism operators, we need to run a business, we need to have cash flow, we have revenue streams, and maybe there's an opportunity using virtual reality to do that. So if we think about virtual reality as a tourism system, the access for the user, like in Germany, is pretty easy as long as you have a headset. And I talked to a previous client the other day, and she visited New Zealand 3 times, and she loved to come back, but she can't because she has health issues. So that's one of the reasons people might use it. She was very emotional when I talked to her about it, and she really wanted to get back to New Zealand, to the advertisement, and she's told me, yes, I would use it. I would use it and I would pay for it. The other one is for the operators. You know, some of the operators, I talked to a fishing guy, a fly fishing guy. This guy has no business at the moment because main market is North America. So there's no business. But what has he done? He actually put a 2-hour video together on the fly fishing season last year, where they had big mice and the fish grow really big. And he's selling it for $9.99 US online, and he makes money with that. So these are kind of ideas we might want to embrace and consider for the future. And the last point, obviously, it's quite a point with the environmental damage and the carbon emissions. If you think about it, if 100,000 travelers from LA fly to Auckland return, they will have 240,000 tons of carbon emission. You need 12 million trees to actually offset that. It's a huge amount. So it's just another reason because we should look into technologies like virtual reality. So that's pretty much for me. I would like to talk about it, talk about the future, visualize the future, get you guys feedback. And that's basically the key reason for coming together today, is people from different backgrounds, different ideas, different experiences, but at the end of the day, we're all sitting in the same boat. We have to run business, we have to run the country, and it's one of those things where we need to put our ideas and thoughts together. So let's think long-term, visualize the future, what it might look like in 3, 5, 10 years. So the outline for today, I'm finished soon, then Professor Mark Billinghurst will talk about. He has a presentation. Then we have a quick coffee break where you can gather your thoughts and can actually think about what kind of questions you have. And then we do a question and answer session between 3 and 4 o'clock. And if it takes a bit longer, that's fine too. But that's the kind of schedule we have for this afternoon. So I would like to introduce Professor Mark Billinghurst. He is currently at Auckland University, bioengineering Institute. He has been, over the past 2 decades, been a pioneer in AR and VR. He has developed a number of world firsts in mobile technology, augmented reality, and he's also a fellow of the Royal Society of New Zealand in recognition of his achievement. Hopefully that's all right. Okay, cool. So yeah, that was pretty much from me. Now we'll switch over to Professor Billinghurst with his presentation. Thank you very much.
Right. Good. I'm not sure if I'm going to sit down because I'm just going to talk a lot. So I'm just going to move the microphone over here, and then great. So it's really good to be here. As Mike was saying, I'm Mark Billinghurst. I was originally from Christchurch and lived there until 5 years ago. Then I went to Adelaide and was working in Adelaide. Now I actually have a part-time position at the University of South Australia and the University of Auckland. So until COVID, every month I was going back and forth in Australia and New Zealand, but I've been stuck here. Unfortunately, my wife's stuck in Australia, so hopefully we'll be back together soon. And I came from New Plymouth, so this is the Mount Taranaki. So it's my mountain. It's an amazing, beautiful place. And of course, we know New Zealand has all these amazing, incredible places, as you've got here in Nelson. But the problem we have now is that nobody's coming to see them. So we've had this huge drop-off in tourism, which has affected all of you, I can imagine. And of course, we've got domestic tourism, but that's not going to make up some of the gap. And it's also very seasonal. So I want to talk today about how can we have tourism without physical travel, and what can we do? And I'll give you a lot of information. I'll also make sure this slide content is available, so you can take it away with you at the end of the time. And as Michael said, at the end of the time, we'll have some time for conversations and everything as well, so I'm happy to keep that going. And also beyond this event, I'm happy to share with you my email address, and you can contact me later as well. So I'm not a tourism operator, but in my opinion, in tourism, you've got really 3 important things. And tourism, a lot is around the location, but actually you have these 3 successful pieces. First of all, you have to have some sort of immersive experience. So people oftentimes will come to a physical location, be it a vineyard or a canoeing experience, they'll come to and they'll have that immersive experience at the location. Secondly, people really like to have a personal connection, whether it's, if you're running a lodge and it's a connection with the person who is running the lodge, or with Michael, who's arranged a tour, they want to have a one-on-one connection with a real person. And then obviously tourism oftentimes involves physical products. So, you do the wine tour, you talk to the vintner, and then you buy bottles of wine at the end of the tour. And so that's all gone now. So how do we replace those elements? A good example of this actually is the Weta Cave. I'm sure many of you have been to Wellington and seen the Weta Cave. And you go to the Weta Cave and there's a tour guide there that will walk you through the cave and tell you about the things on display. You have this really great immersive experience where you can see the props and the models. And then at the end of the cave experience, you go to the store and you buy yourself a Weta model. So those are 3 elements you want to try and combine together. And I'm sure most of you in your businesses will have some of those elements. So I won't talk much about physical products because to a large extent they can be bought online. So this is the store Moko, for example, that does a great business in selling New Zealand greenstone products. So, people can still buy and ship their wine or other products globally. But we'll talk mostly today about the first 2, about immersive experiences and how you can use technology to somehow bring people remotely to your experience. And secondly, the personal connection, how you can use technology to create that strong personal connection. So first of all, immersive experiences. There's been a lot of work being done in this space before, and many of you probably have tried a number of these experiences. There's a huge amount of content on the web now. We have museums and galleries and other people are trying to create virtual tours that exist in your browser. And so they typically have very high quality visuals. For example, here's the Louvre online. And So I won't play the whole thing, but I'm sure some of you have tried that before. And the companies actually specialise in this. So this company called UVisit. If you go to their website, they have a whole bunch of 360 tours on the website, and also they also do things like university tours or real estate experiences as well. So it's very easy to build these now. This is, for example, what they did for, I'll turn the volume off. This is what they did for Houston. And unfortunately, if you go to this on YouTube, you can actually experience it as a 360 movie, but for some reason, PowerPoint doesn't play back the 360 movies, so that's why it's kind of warped like that. But it's really great on your browser because you can use your mouse to pan around while they're playing the movie. And there's be a bit coming up just in a second where they take you into a helicopter, and then you can get the experience of flying over Houston. So this is very common. It's very easy to put these together. You know, you can buy technology like this to do the 360 yourself. So you'll see the Reiko Theta, it's the second one on the end, that costs $300 US. And you just walk through a building, click, and take 360 photos as easy as that. There are also ways you can do it with other devices. This is a thing called occipital scanner, and it just attaches to his iPad. And in fact, with the new iPads, the iPad, I guess iPad Pro, it's called, they have a laser scanner in them, and you just pan your iPad around. You can create a 3D model of your environment. And there are companies that do this professionally, like this one that's very famous is called Matterport. If any of you have been on the real estate market for a while, you'll oftentimes see 3D walkthroughs of homes, and this mostly is done by Matterport. And so Matterport have an app that runs on your phone, or they have oftentimes a real estate agent will have bought a 3D scanner, which costs a few $1,000s, and they can walk through and create a very photorealistic representation of your location. So this gives an example here of a Matterport space. This is actually at the Cornwall Hotel, and they use Matterport to map out the whole hotel, and they can take guests through the hotel before they arrive. So you can see they have a photo view, which is this one here, 360 photographs. They also have a 3D view that you'll see in a second. And as you click on those hotspots, you can go basically walk through a set of panorama photographs. And for some reason, the video is glitching a little bit, but you get the idea. And, you know, when we bought our apartment in Auckland, actually, we previewed the apartment on Matterport before we bought it, because my wife was in Australia, so she could walk through the apartment before we bought it. And I can't remember how much real estate agents charge for this. I think it's a few $1,000s to do a whole building, depending on how many photos they have to take and everything. So that's a really easy existing commercial service. And then you can, I mean, going through the building and things like this is very interesting, but other places have tried to look at how they can make it even more interesting. One particularly interesting location that you might have heard about this year was the Faroe Islands. So the Faroe Islands have really hit hard with COVID because nobody goes there anymore. So they thought in this time they wanted to create a virtual tourism experience that allowed remote people to get a taste of the Faroe Islands, so in a year or so they can make their bookings. So they basically took a GoPro camera and they strapped it to somebody's head and had them walk outside and connect it to a mobile phone, and then had people connect up through the internet to that person and tell them where to walk. And then they would stream the photographs back to the thing. So in terms of tourism, it probably didn't bring that many people, but they got a huge amount of publicity from this, and that their tour application was mentioned on lots of websites. So this is a website, they've taken it down now. We can still go there, but you can't do the tours anymore. I tried to do it for a little while, but they're always at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, so I kind of missed out because of the time difference. But you can see the So I'm really sorry, I'm not sure why the video's playing so badly, but it might be something to do with the computer. But so you basically went to the website and you would sign up. They had the tours for an hour, and they would give each person control of the real person for 1 minute. And then you could watch for an hour, and then you could get your 1 minute slot, and you can tell the person to go left or right. And sometimes you'd be in a helicopter, sometimes on the back of a horse, sometimes in a boat, sometimes just walking. But as I said, I don't think it generated that much business from real people, but it certainly raised a huge amount of publicity for them. And then the videos that they've got on YouTube have been viewed millions of times, and to give people a taste of Faroe Islands. But from a technology perspective, it's very, very simple. So Airbnb did something really interesting. Of course, their business was really hurt by COVID, and I'm not sure if any of you have tried the Airbnb online experiences, but I went with my wife to Argentina about 2 years ago, and when we were there, we did an Airbnb experience, and we did tango dancing, which was fantastic. But of course, that went away as well. So now Airbnb pivoted in April this year and introduced this Airbnb online experiences, where you can go online and you can have a remote tour experience with a real person. So this is getting what I said before about getting that personal connection. And so I'll show you the video of that. Let's see how it looks a little bit. So I won't go through all those, but so it's basically a Zoom call where everybody joins as a group, and then you pay $20 or $30 or whatever to join in. But some of them are very popular. You can see on the left here, Sangria and Secrets with Drag Queens. So you connect with these people in Portugal, a pair of drag queens, and they show you how to make a Sangria drink. They've had 4,000 reviews, and they're at 4.95 right now in terms of their score, 4.6, and they're charging $50 a head. And I'll talk more in a minute, but they're one of the more successful events. So this is something that many people are doing right now. Here are the drag queens, and so they earned $150,000 US in their first month from 5,000, and they've got 5,000 reservations in their first month. Here's some of the reviews they had. And of course, in their case, it's more like a theatre experience, and you don't have to, this very weak connection to the location. I guess maybe Portugal is famous for sangria, but they're not taking you around the city or anything, but they've built this little show up, and it's in 90 minutes, and they've, like I said, they earned $100,000 in the first month. So that's something that some of you might be able to do in your own businesses. You're a kayaker. There's no reason why you couldn't do a experience around talking to people how to do kayaking, and do an online tour for an hour and show them some kayaking tips and tricks, or you could take people through your lodge or other things like this. In fact, there are some New Zealanders doing it. This guy here does a nature tour. So for $20, you can go in this farm in Palmerston North, takes you around his farm for an hour, walks through, he just uses his mobile phone, so he walks around outside, shows people feeding the sheep, talks about what it's like to be a farmer in New Zealand, shows the chickens, and he's had 270 reviews. I don't know how many people have taken it, but here's some of the reviews he's had as well. People have really enjoyed the outdoor experience. And Airbnb provides the whole platform for this. It's just like being a regular Airbnb host. You just connect up, and obviously you have to change your experience because it's now more about you remote showing anything or doing something remotely. Some of the lessons that was learned from this is that the pre-experience really matters. So you have to set people's expectations. And one of the things I said, one of the reviews I've said, they asked everybody who came on the tour to bring some object. And then during the tour, they would talk about the objects that they had and share an experience. There's a need to acknowledge the attendees. So because it's on Zoom, you've got to talk to each person individually and make sure they feel included. The storytelling is really important. So the New Zealand guy who does the farm experience, he is actually from Hong Kong. So he's Chinese, who came here about 10 years ago, bought this farm and started farming. So he talks all about the experience he had and why he came to New Zealand and what's it like to farm here, and it shows the animals and tells the whole story, and that's fantastic. And then, of course, you have to understand the technology. So you have to know how to record really good audio, how to capture the camera angles. And there's an article there from Forbes talks about these different companies, including the drag queens from Portugal, who are making lots of money by doing this just from their homes. So it's one experience. In this case, it's a group tour, so you can have up to 30 people or so coming. And if you're doing the drag experience, you've got 30 people, $50 a head. They're paying $1,500 for a 90-minute experience, which is not too shabby. And if you do that a few times a day, then you've got a business. But Amazon have also got into this business now, and so Amazon have just recently launched this Amazon Explore. And Amazon Explore is a little bit different. This is a one-on-one experience. And you actually have to apply to be part of the experience. Amazon vet you, and it's a bit more complicated to ensure a very high quality experience. And there's different experiences here. Because it's Amazon, a lot of this is also about the shopping experience as well. So you're paying, maybe $50 US for a 1 hour experience, but in that experience somewhere there'll be some shopping as well, because Amazon wants to then ship the products to you, of course. And some of these are very cheap experiences, so I'm not quite sure how they make money, but there's one woman, you'll see her in a minute, she runs a scarf store in Malibu, I think it is, in the US. She charges $10 an hour for her experience. And again, it's just a one-on-one experience, so she's not making a lot of money. But the thing is that everybody who comes to the store, she tries to sell them scarves. So it's not about the $10 to get you in, it's about the $50 scarves you're going to buy while you're there. So let me play the video of this one here. Oh, so it's the scarf seller. So I'll go forward from there. So that's Amazon, and I'm not quite sure how that scales, because obviously with the Airbnb experiences, they got tours of groups of 30, making it $1,500 an hour from your sangria experience. Amazon charge you $50 an hour, and they're probably taking 20% off the top of that. So then the tour guide itself is getting $30 or $40, but I suspect it's because of the on sale on the other end as well. And for some tours before, like when I went to Japan, they had these rickshaw tours, and you'd pay $30 or $40 for a 45-minute one-on-one tour with a rickshaw operator. They're probably about to make the same amount of money by doing this, but it's not available in New Zealand yet, but if you VPN or remote into the US, you can try it out. But one of the problems with this, though, and probably a lot of you have spent a lot of time in the last 6 months on video calls, and you're probably feeling a lot like this. You start getting really, really tired. And actually a thing, they call it Zoom fatigue. There's a few reasons for that. One is that, if I can use the mouse. Okay, so you're sitting down all day in front of the screen. You also have these cognitive factors where it turns out that the guide on the screen becomes part of the background. It's really, you have to concentrate a lot to be able to see their face expression and everything. And then also you have this feeling of people watching you. You're on a Zoom call, there's 20 little videos up there, and you know that everybody else in the call can see you as well. So all these factors together combine to create this kind of Zoom fatigue thing. So what we want to try and do is look at how we can go beyond that and use virtual and augmented reality. So what I've shown you so far is everything that can be experienced on a browser or on a mobile phone. But how can we go beyond that? And so, first of all, I'll just really quickly do a quick update about what VR and AR is, just so you can, then I'll show some experiences you can be done in virtual and augmented reality, and then we'll have time for some discussion and brainstorming everything as well. So first of all, AR and VR. So when I was born, 1967, this was, half the computers in the world was this. This was the IBM 1401. It took up a whole room, and it cost $10,000 a month to run. Actually, you didn't buy them, you rented them for $10,000 a month. $10,000 a month in 1967 was the price of a house. So you're paying that, but like I said, half the computers in the world. And of course, since that time, the computers have come down to the point where in the hand, and you've got things like this. So you've got this general trend towards making the devices themselves invisible. And my background is computer user interfaces. And so when you use a computer now, you've got this kind of separation between the digital world and the physical world, where you've got the screen space, and then you've got you in the real world. But what augmented reality and virtual reality does is it breaks that separation. I'll show you that. First of all, I stole this picture from one of my colleagues. This is about how people have tried to make computers go away. So the top left is what we have when we sit on a laptop. The other squares are different ways of making computers become invisible. So one of them is Internet of Things. If you have a smart thermostat or a smart speaker, a Google Home, that's an Internet of Things device. The computer's disappeared, and all you've got is a speaker on the table, and you speak to it. And somewhere in the cloud, Google understands your voice and starts playing your ABBA music or whatever. But what we're really talking about today is virtual reality, first of all. And with virtual reality, the idea is to replace the real world with computer-generated stuff. So the yellow square is inside the red square. And the key elements of virtual reality are immersion and interaction and using your imagination. And as I said before, in my opinion, the immersive element of tourism is really, really important. You know, people come to Nelson because they want to be in the canoe or on the Apple Tasman. And if we can use technology like this to replace that, then that gives us ability to create some virtual tourism. And there are many different types of VR, you know, from very expensive dome projection systems or rooms to things that run on your mobile phone. So this virtual reality, augmented reality is different. With augmented reality, the idea is you're still seeing the real world, but as you can see with that top right-hand side there, your view of the real world is mediated or modified by the computer. So you can see some virtual content in the real world. Some of you tried the Magic Leap display and you saw a dinosaur floating above the table in the real world. And so in augmented reality, the three key elements is it's combining real and virtual. The content you see is interactive and it's fixed in space or registered in 3D. So here's an example of using augmented reality in a New Zealand company with McDonald's. There's a McDonald's playmat. You can color it in with your colors, and then you can take your mobile phone out and you can look at the playmat and the content comes to life. So you put the phone out, and then you look at the playmat, and the little character appears and starts dancing around. So the key thing though is the character takes the colors that you added on the playmat. This is a company called Quiver Vision. You can download it for free. Kids love the stuff. And for a company like McDonald's, it's fantastic marketing. In fact, there's a lot of opportunity for tourism with augmented reality marketing where you can look at a real print media and you can see 3D stuff coming out of the print media. But that's another conversation. So that's typical for augmented reality today. There's one of the key things to understand is that they're very complementary. So with virtual reality, the goal is to replace the real world. The augmented reality, the goal is to take elements of the real world and enhance them. So and with virtual reality, for example, like these headsets here, they have a very wide view and they try to immerse you in space. And so these lenses fill up 95 or 100 degrees of your field of view. With the augmented reality, the goal is just to enhance. So the lenses on this one over here, the augmented reality display, they're about 30 degrees field of view. So even if you've got a very small field of view, you can have a good experience. And they're actually related. So you can take those three things to talk about Internet of Things, augmented reality and virtual reality, and arrange them on a line. And this continuum here is based on how much the computer generates of your real world. So if you've got a Google Home in your home, the computer generates nothing. It's just a Google Home. But if you've got virtual reality, the computer is replacing everything. So you have this line here. And this line is called the mixed reality continuum. So some of you may have heard the term mixed reality. And the goal is that you can have devices that replace some or all or none of your real environment. So that's sort of technology piece. With virtual reality, there's a wide range of ways to get into it. If you use your mobile phone, you can have basically a free viewer because your virtual reality experience all the way up to $1,000 head-mounted displays. In fact, the Google Cardboard came out as a project built by accident by Google. And this is, for many people, their first entry to virtual reality, because if you have a mobile phone in your pocket, then you've got the computing and the display right here. You combine it with a pair of plastic lenses and you can have a VR experience. And as I talked before, some companies give these away as marketing objects. They build their own app, they give these away to potential customers, and they can easily recoup the cost on for one or two customer sales. With augmented reality, you have, again, a wide range of headsets you can run your head, ranging from $500 to $3,500 or more. But actually, the main way people experience augmented reality today is on their mobile phones. So some of you, if you've got kids or maybe yourself, you might have played Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go was released 2 years ago. They achieved $500 million in sales in 6 months. It was the most profitable mobile app ever. And they combined a location-based experience with augmented reality and a very popular asset, Pokemon. So it shows you. So now if you go onto the various stores like Android or iOS stores, there are thousands and thousands of mobile augmented reality applications. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. So that's the technology. In my opinion, there's really two ways it can be used for tourism. One is to reproduce spaces. So we've talked already about tourism has the need to create an immersive experience, but you don't have people coming to New Zealand anymore, so they can't do the kayaking or whatever, but you could use this technology to replace some of that somehow. And the second thing is about connecting people. So going beyond what Airbnb shows with the online experiences and showing new ways to connect people. So I'll show that in a bit. So in terms of virtual reality and reproducing spaces, there are many apps that do this. This is one called Wander, and Wander is basically Google Street View, but in a headset. And so you can put the headset on, you can type in an address, and it'll take you to that location in the world, and then at that location, I'll show different information. Like this is the Eiffel Tower, and it'll tell you about the Eiffel Tower. So here's an example of the pyramid. So this is the Wander app, and actually this also exists as a website, so you can go on the web, but it's more immersive on the phone. And it has, as you saw there, the ability to put addresses in, and wherever Google has gone, which is probably 7 or 8% of the world, you can then experience this on a headset. And because it's Google Street View, you can go back in time as well and see what that location looked like 5 years or 10 years ago. I'll skip over this. This was a 360 movie, but can I skip over it? It's like because I can't show 360. So that's a 360 photograph, but people have also been reproducing certain locations as a 3D model. And this is a New Zealand company actually called Reality Virtual. They were invited to go to Egypt, and they captured the tomb of Nefertari as a very high quality 3D model. So you can download this now and you can go and visit the tomb again without leaving your home, obviously. And so you'll see that in this here. And it's quite an amazing experience. Apologies for the warped video, but again, if you're on your YouTube, you'd be able to go around and see this as a 360 video. But this is a fully 3D experience. So you can go on your Oculus Quest or your other VR headset, you can walk through the tomb. And in fact, I saw another video where there was a professor of Egyptology in Australia, and he was taking his students here so they could read the hieroglyphics on the walls. And so it's much better to have them actually reading from in the tomb than actually from a piece of paper, because they get to see it in the actual location. So it's quite an amazing experience, and obviously you don't have to fly to Egypt to have that experience. I think this is a $10 charge, so it's a really good experience. See you later. And so this is, I went to the Oculus Quest store, and this is all the tourism experiences have in the Quest store. So you can go to Zion's Park, which I guess is one you showed probably. Chernobyl, you can go and walk through Chernobyl and see the after effects of the radiation leak. Meditation, 360 movies, and National Geographic has their one and so forth. In fact, this is the Chernobyl view here. I'll fast forward a little bit because it's in the first beginning part, it's not so interesting. And so you can go to Chernobyl and walk through Chernobyl, or feel like you're walking through Chernobyl. And they also have video clips of some of the survivors telling what it was like when they had to evacuate the city. So that's virtual reality. So as I said, using 360 image capture devices or building full 3D models, you can take people to locations without having to go there. You can use augmented reality to bring locations to you. So this is Microsoft Holo Tours. And with this one, you put the headset on, and in your living room, you see the content coming to you. So I'll show you this here. Okay, so fast forward. Oops, sorry about that. So that's bringing it to, and of course, once you've got this virtual representation, as he said, you can go back in time and show different elements as well. Some of you tried the headset on, you saw some dinosaurs that have been extinct for hundreds of millions of years in your living room. We can do the same thing with augmented reality on our own mobile devices. So you can go to physical spaces and use augmented reality to overlay information. And obviously that's not quite so relevant now when you don't have people coming to you here, but you can imagine for the future. In fact, we did an experience for that with Christchurch. So right after the earthquake in Christchurch, we built an augmented reality experience that allowed us to put back in place some of the buildings that were demolished. So this is the public library in Christchurch, the old public library in 1878. It's very historic because it was the first public library in New Zealand, but it's gone now. But you can use our app, and I'll show you the video of that. Go back into that location, you can see the building put back in place. Actually, this was filmed while the building was being demolished. So you can see the crane there demolishing the building. And then here's our app on the phone, and you can go back and you can see a 3D model of the library in front of you. Now, obviously, in this case, it requires people to go to a physical location, which is not possible for some tourism now. But what you can also do, actually, I'll skip through this. Not so important. You can bring remote locations to people. So one of the experiments we did about 5 years ago, we did an Antarctic experience, and most people don't have the opportunity to go to Antarctica. But we built an experience where you'd walk around Hagley Park in Christchurch, and we remapped Antarctica to part of Hagley Park and scale it down. So you could basically follow in the footsteps of Scott and walk about a kilometre around the park. At different parts where you're walking, things would pop up and it would tell you what happened or show you a 3D model of his location there. So, so this maps one space onto another space. So I'll show you the video of that working. So this was a mobile app that ran on your Android tablet, and it had a bunch of different pages. You could go on different expeditions. So this is exploring the dry fields. You could visit Ross Island. You could follow Scott's expedition, follow Hillary's tractor drive to the pole. And then we took that and we had about, this is 15 minutes, 1 kilometre of walking. So this is the map. And you start walking in the real world in that direction. And we obviously took thousands of kilometres of Antarctica and mapped it down to 1 physical kilometre of walking. And then different points, you have these pop-ups telling you showing different photographs or different text of what happened at that location. So this is the photograph showing Scott about to leave from Littleton, and you can pinch and zoom around that. And then you can walk towards the hut, and when you got close to the hut, and you see an augmented reality view, and you see a 3D model of the hut in front of you. So here's a person walking around. We had to build these special shields so you could see the device in the sunlight. But they're walking in the real world, and then you can see it overlaid in the real world. There's kind of an ice, the mountains there overlaid in the real world. Right, and then you can see that red flag, and that red flag is actually Scott's hut. And as you got close to the hut, it swapped you into a 360 view of the hut, so you could look inside the hut as it was, and the photographs were taken just a few years before. So you'll see that walking close to the hut. 3D model of the hut, then you can see the photograph, and then you can tap. I think this one here takes you into a 360 view. Click on that, and that loads up a 360 video, and you can turn the tablet around and you feel like you're inside Scott's hut. So obviously most people don't get a chance to physically go to Antarctica, but with this one, it was taking Antarctica to your public park and allowing you to walk through the park and have an experience with it. So that's examples of trying to use virtual and augmented reality to let remote people experience spaces or bring remote spaces to you. The last thing I want to talk about is sharing spaces. And I think this is a really exciting opportunity for the technology because, in my opinion, one of the key parts of tourism is that personal connection. And for example, Amazon found that when they first built the Amazon, so it turns out I was working for Amazon part-time and I was involved in the Amazon Explore project at the very beginning. And at the very beginning, they had a very amazing experience, but it had a lot of computer graphics and a lot of interaction, and you played games inside the experience. And they discovered actually that what people really wanted to do is just talk to the guide. And they threw all that stuff away, and they made sure the guides had really compelling story. And they could still show you some photographs and do a little bit of interaction, but it was really this connection with the person. And so, in my opinion, the virtual reality and augmented reality is a really amazing way to create that connection. So I'll give you some examples of that. So you can basically, there's a big movement now in VR and AR towards social VR and AR spaces. So I'll give you some examples. So Facebook that makes the Oculus here, one of the reasons why they paid $2 billion for the company that Oculus company to buy it is because they want to build social VR experiences. And they've just released an experience called Facebook Horizon. And Facebook Horizon is a social VR space where you can go and have thousands of people can come together at the same time in VR and have shared experiences. So this is
Wow.
so I'll stop that. So obviously Facebook has a huge social media footprint right now, and they're trying to sell millions of these devices so they can do that same thing with people all over the world, but get away from just doing Facebook Live or seeing people 2D and have that 3D experience. And as you saw in the video, you can actually build your own 3D spaces as well. One of the other companies is Microsoft, and Microsoft have this technology called Outspace VR. Outspace is interesting because they have a version that runs on the browser, but or the headset, but you can also do it on your desktop PC as well. And this is another way for people to come together. They have really great support for, they have really nice avatars you can see there, and also really great support for spatial audio. So you can have a meeting with 40 or 50 people, and you can hear the audio coming from all different directions, just like in face-to-face setting. And there's actually a very large existing community. So there are hundreds of weekly events happening in Outspace VR already. You have things like weekly meetups for people on different gaming groups, LGBTQ meetups, virtual reality presentations, tours for different sites. And so here's a video of Outspace VR. So this is the starting space, basically. And then everybody has their own character. And this is the character. I was going to give it to I won't go through that in detail, but that's very successful. Now, one of the examples of use that is I wanted to talk about is Burning Man. So some of you may know Burning Man. Of course, I think it's about 500,000 people come together in the desert in Nevada every year. And this year it wasn't held, of course, but it's a very alternative community, and they build these amazing temporary structures, and everybody drives their RVs there and go there. And it's a huge location-based event. So they had a big problem this year. They couldn't have Burning Man. So what to do? So they basically took Burning Man and they put it into Outspace VR, and they ran a virtual Burning Man. And so they had this Burning Man. In fact, they used many technologies. So Outspace was one of them, but they still try to create that same feeling as Burning Man. So you go to Outspace, and here's a video of somebody doing that. So this is what the player looked like. So you can still see the feeling of all the people in the desert. All the RVs are there. In the middle there is the, I think he's going to navigate over to it. In the middle is the man that's going to be burned later. And then during the week or two of Burning Man, they had a lot of virtual events, concerts and other events happened in the space. And it was all free. So unlike having to spend thousands of dollars to fly to Nevada and being in the dust storm and everything, now you can have that similar experience at home. But the most important part of it was the social component. So when you went into the space, you could interact with hundreds of other people that were also having the same concert or having the same experience as you. So let me go to the next video. This shows a person in Burning Man. He's navigating around. There's all the trailers, and he's going towards the party. Marshmallows around the fire. Pick up your marshmallow sticks and you can toast them over the fire. There's some interaction. And some of the sculptures and things like that.
Wow.
I mean, obviously it's not the same. Oops, I want to stop this video. It's not the same as the, I'm sorry, pause, as being there, really being there and you know, being in the sand and the food and everything else, but it provides some of that same experience, especially that social experience. And the other thing is it connects to people that wouldn't be able to go before. There's been some amazing advances. So that's virtual reality, obviously. You see everything in the real world, but there's a company called Spatial that does some incredible stuff with augmented reality, and especially to create shared experiences between AR and VR. So I'll just show you this video. This is more relevant for meetings, but you'll still get the feeling. Take a photograph of your face, it puts a little 3D character, and then it puts them into the real world. So potentially if you want to meet with your clients and have them feel like they're with you in the real world, you could use technology like this, and the clients can be at their homes in the US or wherever, and they could use either their mobile phone, their tablet, or if they have a VR and AR headset, they can put it on, and they can feel like they're with you in the same physical space. And they're now they're doing some brainstorming, so she's showing some photographs of potential tourism locations and talking with her client about what they might want to do on their tour, and they can browse. And then they're getting away from that screen space you had before. Now it's again being in that immersive space. And this is a free app that runs on the Oculus Quest. So I want to talk briefly also about other opportunities with augmented reality. One of the most exciting things is about the ability that augmented reality gives you to share another person's perspective. So I showed you already the Faroe Islands when the person had on the head there. So this is the Google Glass display that came out a few years ago. And this is a small head-mounted display that has a camera in it and also a display. So you can wear it on your head and you can walk around the real world and live stream what you're seeing to remote people. And they can kind of feel like they're seeing through your eyes. This is the version that we've been building in our lab. This is, has a display for both eyes, has a more fancy camera on it. And you can do things like this. So this is sharing a live video with a remote expert. This is the expert on the side here. And the remote person could draw on the video, and then you can see the drawing in your field of view. So if you're trying to tell somebody how to do something like fix a car or something, you could wear the headset, stream the video to a remote person, and they could draw, and you'd see the drawings in your real world showing how to fix the car. So it really allows remote people to feel that they're part of your space, and especially good for remote expert assistance, not so much tourism, but I'm sure the application's there. And one of the challenges, though, with this is that you've got a camera on your head, and with the Faroe Islands example, and you're only seeing what the camera can see, so it's only a small part of the real world. So in the last few years, we've gone beyond that and looked at how you can live stream a 360 video. So some of you experienced the 360 video on the headset here. Imagine if you could live stream that from location to somebody else and then talk to a person as well. So in this case, you have a 360 camera on your head. You can live stream the video to a second person who's in a VR headset, and that person can look around and can see what you're seeing and feel like they're with you in the same space. And we also have technology where you can capture your hands and send it back. So the person on the left-hand side has an augmented reality display, and you can see these kind of ghost hands floating in your space. So I'll show you the video of that running. So this is a project we did with the power company, and they had a big problem where they wanted to fix equipment and the remote person wasn't around. So you can see a person here is in the power station trying to understand how to fix this control console. He's got the augmented reality headset on, the 360 on his head, and he live streams his view to a remote person. So in his headset, you can see his ghost hands, and the ghost hands can draw in the real world and say, can you pull this out and do this thing here? And that green square shows where the other person's looking, because it's 360 video, they can look wherever they want. So they may not necessarily be looking in the same direction as you. So here's the remote person, and the remote person has a 360 video streamed to them. So even though they're in the headset there and in that location, they feel like they're standing next to or in the same body as the person in the real world. And wherever they look, they can see that person's environment, and as they can draw on them as well. So that creates a really immersive experience, and it really does feel like you're there because you can see it's high quality video. The problem, though, is that this involves thousands of dollars worth of equipment. There's probably $10,000 or $15,000 of stuff on both those people. And, you know, for a tourism operator, that's, unless you're doing super high-end tourism, that's probably not something you can afford. So when COVID hit, we decided we need to make that more accessible. And so we basically, in April through June this year, we built a version of this that runs on the web. And there's a platform that's kind of like Zoom called Jitsi, which is a video conferencing platform. And we built a 360 plugin for it. So you could have a remote person who's at a real location with a camera and a phone. They can then live stream the 360 view to dozens of people wherever else they want to be. And this gets around the problem that Airbnb experiences have, where, you know, with Airbnb experiences, you don't really see the whole room of the person doing the cooking or whatever else. You just see that little camera view. So this has a guide or a host, and they are walking around the real world with a 360 camera and a tablet. The cameras cost about $500 New Zealand. The tablet's just a regular tablet, so it's less than $2,000 worth of equipment. Then this live streams to person on their web browser, and our technology works on any web browser. It doesn't require any technology at the consumer or the customer end. It's just like using a video conference. So this is what the interface looks like. It's pretty much a Zoom-like interface. You know, you've got chat windows, you've got, you can raise your hand, you can start calls with people. So let me show you a video of this working. So here's a person walking to the museum in Auckland. And then, as I said, they've got this little camera, phone. They walk around the museum, and they're also talking to the remote people on audio, of course. And as they're going around, they're live streaming this to the remote people. The remote people on their browser, they click through, and now the remote person can see 360 video on their browser, and they can pan around the video just like they would be if they're in the real world. What you'll notice, though, with 360 video is that the video quality can be quite a bit blurry. So because you're taking video and spreading across 360, so we can also preload pre-recorded 360 video. So here's a pre-recorded video, and also pre-recorded images. And images are very high quality, they're 4K resolution or higher. And because you've got pre-recorded video, you can do things like, for example, go to the Auckland Museum. There could have been a haka performance that was done there a few months ago. You pre-record that 360 of that, and then when you later on do a tour of that same experience, you can play back the haka experience. Or if you're, you're kayaking, it might be very hard for you to physically take people out on the boat kayaking, but you'd go later. Beforehand, you could pre-record some 360 video and say, now, if we were to take the boat out, this is what it would look like if I was out in the near the Abel Tasman walkway, and they can look around that 360 video or 360 images. And unlike Amazon Experience or Amazon Explore, sorry, we can stream this to 15 or 20 people who are all paying customers, and so then you've got 20 or so people doing a tour paying you without having to come to New Zealand. So that's what we've been working on now. We're just doing some trials with this. We've been testing with the Auckland Museum, with a language school. It turns out language schools in New Zealand can't have any inbound customers anymore. And one of the language schools in Auckland, every weekend they'll take out their Chinese and Japanese students to locations around Auckland for tours. So we're doing tours with them, and we're talking with Weta about how we can use this for Weta workshop. The other advantage of this type of experience is you can run this 24/7. So if you're with Weta Cave, and right now the cave runs from 9 to 5, but there's no reason why it has to run from 9 to 5. If you're able to do remote tours, you can do them 24 hours a day, and you can get students coming in, doing the tours at 2 o'clock in the morning and hitting the European or the American markets. The other thing is you can increase capacity. So with Weta Cave, they really can't fit more than 20 or 30 people in the space at a time because it's just a small building. But with this one, you can put 4 or 5 guides in the space at the same time at different parts of the tour, and now you've got 4 tours going at the same time, each with 20 or 30 people at the same time. So that's what we've been working on. And then this is what the guide has on their side. They've got a tablet with an interface like a Zoom-like interface, so they can see all the people they're talking to and again have that personal connection. And then they can also use this interface to load up pre-recorded content. So as part of the storytelling experience, you can click through and say, okay, now we're going to show you what this looked like 5 years ago, or here's, if it's Weta, for example, with the cave experience, they can take photographs from inside some of the models where people physically can't go, and they say, let's take you inside Lady Penelope's mansion and look at that in 360, and you can load the photo up and then go into the model. And then the people at their home, they basically have a web experience. We've got the ability to do remote pointing as well, so the person at home can pan around the 360 and click on something and say, what's that thing there, tell them more about it. Now, that's 360, but that's still video. So where we're going in the future and where the technology is going is towards live 3D capture. But this is many more years out in the future. But it turns out you can get these special cameras, which are depth sensing cameras, similar to what you get on the iPad now, and they'll create a 3D point cloud of what they're seeing. And if we get multiple, so if we've got here a cluster of 6 of them, we've got 6 of them together, we can capture, and we, for example, we can mount it on the ceiling in the building room here, we can capture everything which is happening underneath that as a 3D model. And what that means is that instead of having a 360 video that you can't move through, once you've got a 3D model, you can actually walk through the space and you feel like you're part of the space. So we're starting to work on that, but that's expensive and it's a few years away from commercialization. This is what it looks like. So this is a God's eye perspective. This is a first person perspective. So this is a live 3D model. And you'll see in a minute, my student walks into the space and you'll see him coming on the left-hand side here, and it is a 3D person appearing there as well. And in the VR headset, I can actually walk through the space as well. Now, obviously some issues. So wherever the blue is, this is where the cameras can't see, and you can't see under tables, things like that. So it's very rough, but it shows what could be possible in the future. And especially when you can combine this with 360 video, you can then capture content live and let people move through it. So that lets you do things like having a scanning system set up where you can do remote expert assistance or whatever else. So in terms of technology, there's evolution now going from 2D video, which is basically where Amazon is and where Airbnb is with the Amazon experiences, they're just doing live video, to now 360. And our group in Auckland, and there's one other company, are the only ones in the world that we found so far that are doing live stream 360 for tourism. And then actually other companies not doing it for tourism, they're doing it for real estate because they haven't figured out how to stream to lots of people. And then there's a trend towards this 3D, and probably 5 or 10 years time, you'll have a small little device, maybe it's flown on a drone or something that can go through a space, it'll capture it in 3D and live stream it to remote people, and remote people can feel like they're in that space. So these technology trends are all coming together, being able to capture space, being able to use, having amazing displays. You've got technology for capturing your hands and your eyes. The person on the bottom here is wearing a VR headset that has EEG electrodes on it, so they can measure their emotion and they can tailor the experience to your emotional response, which is pretty amazing. And so this all comes here to what you might call as empathic teleexistence. And the idea of that is that basically you want to move people from being observers to being participants. So you want people to feel like they're doing something together in the space with you as a guide or as an operator or in the real space. And you have these more experiential collaboration where you're doing things together. So it turns out people are doing research on this as well, not us, but others in Japan. This is an example of a teleexistence robot. So on the left-hand side, you see a person wearing a lot of expensive gear. On the right-hand side, you see a super expensive robot, which has cameras and microphones in its ears. And so the person on the left can, when they move their hands in the real world, the real robot mimics the emotion. And actually, there's a really bad movie that came out 2009, I think it was called Surrogates, which is a and you can see the video clip here. Here's the Surrogates movie, and the premise of Surrogates is that sometime in the future, robots are going to be so cheap that everybody will have a robot, and they'll be your personal surrogate. So you'll be at home and you'll put this VR gear on, and the robots will go out in the real world and do stuff, and they'll do really dangerous stuff like jump off buildings or skydiving or whatever else. It doesn't matter because you can't get hurt because it's a robot. But it turns out in this movie something goes wrong, and some people start killing the robots, and for the first time, the people in the VR headset start to die. And so you'll see this is Bruce Willis in this movie. So here's the robots being built. And of course, everybody looks really beautiful. So here's Bruce Willis in the VR and real world. And then when he goes into the surrogate robot, here's handsome Bruce Willis. He's got hair now, and because everybody looks really handsome and beautiful in the modern world. And then you can do things like jumping off buildings and crazy stuff. But unfortunately, people start dying, and yeah. So it's actually a really terrible movie, but the premise is kind of interesting. And it may seem like science fiction, but actually there's a company that's doing this for real now. So there's this company called Teleexistence, and Teleexistence is a Japanese company that sells these telepresence robots. So here's a person putting the VR gear on, and they're picking a location to go to. They're going to a surf shop in Hawaii, put the VR headset on, and then they're transported in. This is the robot, and the robot's actually in the surf shop. So he can look around and move through the surf shop. And now he's going to buy a surfboard. So he looks at the surfboards. He talks to the owner again. And the robot has hands, so he can reach out and touch the surfboard. And the VR gear at the other end has these tactile sensors that can create that feeling as well. So he's getting a selfie with the surfboard. And then the sun comes down and the sun wants to go somewhere else. So they both put the gear on and now they're going to go and visit Kyoto and do the cherry blossoms. And they feel like they're in Kyoto. And then they decide they want to do one last trip. And now they're going to go to outer space. Because, of course, you could have a robot on the space station and they have a good Wi-Fi connection back to the Earth. You could be in space and now they feel like they're in space. And so the company sells these are super expensive. So it's $100,000 plus for the robot. But of course, their business model isn't to sell the robots. The business model is to sell time on the robots. So the idea is they could have a robot in Nelson or in Auckland, and you'd pay $5 a minute, and you'd jump into the robot, and then you'd be able to walk through the streets of Nelson and have tele-existence experience. So they're just getting started. So who knows how well it'll be. But I can easily imagine if these things came down in cost, you might have people, and you had more devices at home. There's no reason why you wouldn't put a headset on and you would jump into a location and you pay $1 a minute or something to do something in this location and feel like you're really there. Wow. So that's pretty much everything I'm going to talk about today. Hopefully the takeaway message you've got is that AR and VR enables location sharing, enables the creation of this personal connection, and we've got this trend towards this empathic tele-existence. But the most important thing is that you can get started now. With essentially a free cardboard viewer, a 360 movie, you can start sharing your experience globally. Or there's other technologies like the 360 video that we're building right now you can use, or you can go into Airbnb and you can do your drag show and make $100,000 a month, or there's lots of technology options out there. So that's everything I'll talk about. There's my contact details. And I guess, I think I ran a little over time. 10 minutes over, but now we've got time for some discussion. So I think you want to have some tea and coffee, and then we can start talking. I'm just here by myself, obviously, but it turns out there's a network of about half a dozen researchers in AR and VR in New Zealand, and they're super interested in the tourism space because they realise that they've got the technology to help bring people to these real locations and connect those connections, but they don't have the expertise in the space. So if any of you are interested in that, we'd love to talk. And we're trying to convince the Tourism New Zealand to create an innovation fund to support this. Of course, they've done a great job in supporting industry and they've been paying wage subsidies, which is fantastic. But that just keeps the existing companies alive. It doesn't transform the industry. So we really want to create an innovation fund where they can say, okay, well, let's put in $500,000 to pilot this type of thing and work with your operators to see what really works. Because tourism is not going to be the same as it was in the past. Even once COVID's gone, with some of the things I've shown you, you can expand your businesses beyond just having people come to your physical locations. And that's the way it's going to be in the future, I think. So thanks for that.